Why is this modernist housing estate in Berlin shaped like a horseshoe? That's the question I'll try to answer in this video. This planned community was built in stages from 1925 to 1931, and it's located in an area of Berlin called Britz. Its formal name was the Britz Large Housing Estate. Actually, only one building is horseshoe-shaped, but for obvious reasons, even as it was being built, people started calling it the Horseshoe Housing Estate. The horseshoe name was, and still is, applied to the entire complex, which covers several blocks. In 2008, it was one of 6 properties declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site under the title Berlin Modernism Housing Estates. But this raises a question. Is a building with such an unusual shape, and one that is so clearly symbolic in its appearance, a proper emblem of modern architecture? Consider these words from the lead architect and planner on this project, Bruno Taut. The first and foremost point at issue in any building should be how to attain the uttermost utility. If everything is founded on sound efficiency, this efficiency itself, or rather its utility, will form its own aesthetic law. But the horseshoe building seems to directly contradict this. Is it really the most utilitarian and efficient design? Virtually all the other buildings Taut designed for this project, and others he designed during the same time period, had rectangular site plans. This is also true of other modernist Berlin housing estates included in the UNESCO World Heritage Site designation. Some in the press commented on this. A French publication criticized the horseshoe building for its desire for grandeur at the expense of logic. The publication noted, however, the error is limited to one section. The rest of the development is well designed. So, why did Taut use a horseshoe shape? Several explanations have been provided by Taut and others who have studied his work. A German architectural trade publication noted, a pond was the impetus for designing an entire building block in the shape of a horseshoe. But the publication was skeptical. The difficult soil conditions undoubtedly justify the lack of development on this site, but hardly the chosen form of enclosing a seemingly small pond. As this 1925 map shows, there were no existing streets in this area when the project started. I've placed a C at the approximate location where the horseshoe building was built. In other words, Taut had many design solutions he could have opted for. Another often cited reason is that Taut wanted to create a special public space at the heart of the development. Putting buildings around a pond achieved this, but again, why a horseshoe shape? Well, actually, I don't think it's a horseshoe. I think it's a magnet, though admittedly this type is called a horseshoe magnet. I think the answer lies with Taut's past associations, as an Expressionist architect and as the designer of a garden city development. Expressionist architecture can be a bit hard to define, but it was a variant of modern architecture and, among other things, it included the use of unusual forms to express emotions or ideas. Taut created a glass pavilion for an exhibition in Cologne, Germany in 1914. This is widely celebrated as an icon of Expressionist architecture. Taut also wrote extensively on Expressionist themes. On the other hand, from 1913 to 1916, Taut was the lead architect and planner on Falkenberg Garden City in Berlin. So, what do Expressionism and garden cities have to do with the horseshoe? Which, as I mentioned, I think is really a magnet. The Garden Cities movement originated with British writer Ebenezer Howard. In 1898, Howard wrote a book called Tomorrow, A Peaceful Path to Real Reform. It was reissued in 1902 and renamed Garden Cities of Tomorrow. The first illustration in this book is a diagram called The Three Magnets, which neatly summarizes Howard's message. He identified 2 major forms of human settlement then existing, the country and the town, and with the latter he also included cities. Country and town each worked as a magnet to attract people, but both had many drawbacks. Howard proposed a new approach, the town country, or, as he also called it, the garden city. He argued that the garden city could be a new, better magnet, combining the best of the country and the town, and avoiding the negatives of each. The garden city's concept proved popular all over the world, including in Germany, and the 3 magnets diagram became iconic. It symbolized what the garden city movement could achieve. Even today, the 3 magnets is used as a symbol in Letchworth Garden City in England, which is the first garden city that was developed by Howard and others. There's even a 3 Magnets pub in Letchworth. Getting back to Taut, As a Garden City's architect, he would have been very familiar with Howard's three magnets. I think he chose the magnet as a metaphorical symbol for his new project in Britz, Berlin, as a way to link modern architecture with Garden City ideas and Expressionist forms. The Britz Large Housing Estate, as it was originally known, was the first major housing project in Berlin by Taut and his employer, called GIHAG. If this project failed, it might have endangered further projects they were planning. With Taut's Expressionist architecture background, I think he would have been willing to literally bend the rules of modern architecture to attract attention. How better to break the Modernist mold than with an iconic symbol that people could readily identify, even if they didn't know its true meaning. In fact, the project received a lot of press coverage. While some was negative, there was also much that was positive. It may have been the newspapers who dubbed this development the Horseshoe, even if it really was a magnet. In closing, although I'm not aware of any documentary evidence that Taut was deliberately using the Garden City magnet as a symbol, I share this hypothesis for your consideration. Please feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching.